First, it's 1997, the night of her 50th wedding anniversary, and Queen Elizabeth II is giving a speech in London to dozens of distinguished guests. Finally, standing to speak and with uncharacteristic emotion, she spoke of her husband, Prince Philip. He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, but he has, quite simply, been my strength and stay all these years. It offered the public a rare glimpse into an extraordinary union that would last 73 years. But what was the secret to the longevity of that relationship? A new book, Elizabeth and Philip, a story of young love, marriage and monarchy, offers a fresh perspective on one of the greatest love stories of the last century. And its author, Tessa Dunlop, joins me now. We might think, Tessa, that we know absolutely everything about them, but you clearly think we don't.
Well, thank you, Alan. I was really keen to time travel, to go back to the 40s and 50s. Up until now, I've worked with the late Queen's generation, who fought in the Second World War at Bletchley Park, or in the ATS, the Auxiliary Territorial Service that the young Elizabeth, Princess Elizabeth, also served in. And still some of those women I've worked with were alive at the time of writing, and crucially, some of their husbands. One always needs a male perspective when writing about Philip, the ultimate alpha man of the 50s. And I interviewed a number of them. I was lucky enough to catch a number of them and their thoughts and perspective, because we look back and we remember it and we recreate it, but we didn't live it, Alan. And it's been a fascinating journey, actually, to understand just how important Elizabeth and Philip were to their generation. They were super relevant. The year they married, which of course 75 years ago this year, was a record-breaking year for weddings. The average age of the bride crashed to 22. So someone like Barbara, serving in the same service as the princess, really was, to use a political phrase, in lockstep with the heir to the throne. And that was very important then. This was the pinnacle of family monarchy. And also the state and the church were really trying to push this idea of marriage post-war.
Well, my parents married in the same year, 1947.
There you are, bang on trend. Them and over 400,000 couples.
We see them here in that glorious picture there. What a wonderfully glamorous couple they were. That's around about the time of the coronation, that, isn't it?
Yeah, what's interesting about that couple, when I dig in and get the perspective of their generation, Daphne, 99, shared a birthday, 10th of June, with Philip. Well, of course, he was more beautiful than Elizabeth. I think Daphne had the hots for him herself. But there was a lot of scepticism around the idea of this young, buccaneering, handsome and foreign prince, penniless to boot, marrying our crown jewel. January 1947, the Sunday Pictorial, they ran a poll. People were invited to write in. And I hate to say it wasn't all good news for Philip. No, we want a British commoner. We don't want a foreign prince. Little Britain pulling up the drawbridge post-war. We were a changed place.
And yet, I interviewed Prince Philip for his 90th birthday, and I said, you gave up a naval career. And he said, yes, just as it was getting interesting. He made a lot of sacrifices to become the Prince Consort, in a way, didn't he?
He did. And he was an alpha man in effectively a beta role in that constitutional respect.
And would never put himself in front. You know, everybody said he always walked behind, he did, but whenever you talked to him, it was also always as a supporter of the Queen. He would never put himself to the fore. Even when you talked to him about his wartime service, he would say, well, I did what all the other men did as well. He would never push himself.
Yeah, and crucially, he understood the gig to the manner born. They were third cousins, and he knew the indignity of exile. He understood monarchy and its importance. It ran through his veins. He had an extraordinary lifelong platform, and I think in many respects used it to the good.
I say the secret to their longevity. I mean, 73 years is a long time. And you get people saying, oh, well, yes, you know, but various things went on. They stuck together. And I remember seeing a film about the Royal Yacht Britannia, and the Queen was on board and Prince Philip joined it later. And this is later in their life. This is about, I suppose, about 20, 25 years ago now. And he came up the gangplank and into the lobby of the ship where she was waiting for him. And she giggled like a schoolgirl when she went towards him and kissed him. It was wonderful.
That really struck me, just how much the Queen proper fancied Philip from the word go. She had a teenage crush. She used to cut out press cuttings of him and stick them in a scrapbook when she was locked up in Windsor Castle in the earlier part of the war. But you quoted her strength and stay line. Very interestingly, they gave little clues as to the success of their marriage. For their silver wedding anniversary, she said, a good marriage, a Christian marriage, is about tolerance and understanding. And he repeated that line on their 50th wedding anniversary. He said, the Queen has tolerance in abundance, take it from me. And I think there is that element of redemption and forgiveness that pair exemplified, and I think it's why we mourn them so. They both lived full lives to the very end of their lives, but yet how we miss them for that.
What came over quite forcibly as well, and latterly for Prince Philip as well, was the strength and depth of their faith. The Queen, particularly in her Christmas message, faith would obviously always be at the core of what she said. And I came to realise that later on it was every bit as important to Prince Philip as well, who had favourite prayers that he used.
Yeah, very interesting. And I suppose in every marriage there are essential ingredients, aren't there? Common points. And you have that umbrella that is monarchy, but bound within that, the role of defender of the faith. This idea that they are God's servants in so many respects, and our national servants and servants of the Commonwealth. They were, and also of their generation.
But the pressure on any marriage, it must have been incredibly difficult for them both.
Yeah, and I was very struck, I think, because Elizabeth wasn't heir to the throne until she was 10 and so forth, we don't think of her having 24/7 media at that time, but she was effectively born in a goldfish bowl. A lot of my research told me that. Philip, not so. And actually, girls who served with her in Camberley, albeit briefly, in spring 1945, remember her as someone shy around her peers, but totally at ease in front of the camera. She'd have been fine here, Alan, in front of the TV cameras. But Philip wasn't born to it. He rubbed along, and to our great amusement often, you know, his wonderful one-liners. But I think it was something that he had to get used to, and sometimes a bit resentfully.
He wrote me a letter after that interview saying, thank you. As you've probably realised, being interviewed is not my favourite occupation, which I thought was very generous of him to say. Basically saying, I'm sorry. It was challenging, but it was still fascinating. What do you think of the future now? I mean, is the monarchy secure?
I think it is for the time being. The great narrative of the 20th century started really by her grandfather George V, was family monarchy. They led the era of the nuclear family. This was the pin-up couple, really, for that mid-century time. I think the royal family going forward do probably need to find a fresh narrative. We live in a very different world, a world of blended families. But I think, yeah, there needs to be a new story. Look like it might be the environment. Again, that's potentially political, so a bit harder for the monarch to embrace wholeheartedly, as I think we saw with COP27. But I think we love Charles. We've grown up with him. We've made our same mistakes with him.
And we know his beliefs now, quite clearly.
And he's a man of his time, as they were of theirs, Alan.
You make it wonderfully fresh in this glorious book. Elizabeth and Philip, the story of young love, marriage and monarchy. Thank you very much indeed. Tessa Dunlop, thank you.